I am reluctant to write about a culture I have not experienced firsthand, where I don't have a foothold in that culture at all. I feel comfortable writing more about Chinese and Japanese culture because I've lived there, I have friends there. I can speak a little bit of the languages, and I don't feel as comfortable writing about things that I know absolutely nothing about. I mean, like I can do research, but I would feel like I really needed to spend time in the culture. I would need to feel like those people were comfortable with the way I was writing about them. And sometimes though it gets a little tricky when you're trying to write about culture, because I know in my books I have a culture that's oppressing the other culture, just as we have in the real world. And the oppressive Victorians, of course, look down upon the Chinese people and aren't very nice about them. And I had one librarian actually email me concerned, saying, I saw this review where it says that you said that these people have like almond-shaped eyes, or like the classic sort of descriptors that are very offensive. And I said, well, no, that's not what's going on here. That is, which I never actually used that, but that is the culture that's being oppressive toward, the Chinese descendants being nasty. And sometimes you write that into your text because you want to lift up a lens onto the fact that these people are either being oppressed or there's imperialism going on. You want to show, look at this is not right. And sometimes people mistake your intent there, so you have to be careful there too. And you might get questions, the librarian was asking, I have lots of Asian students, is this okay for them to read, or are they going to be upset? And I said, I don't think they'll be upset. This is what I was trying to accomplish. So you have to also be willing to take those kind of questions,
discuss
and discuss it, not get offended if someone says, I don't think this is right, or whatever, So I think that's a good thing to do.
So the issue of cultural appropriation it's not like, oh, well, we can't share anything with any other culture, right? Like, obviously, especially, kind of the global community we have, the internet bringing people together from all corners of the earth, there's a lot of sharing of cultures that's going on. And the problem isn't sharing. The problem isn't, oh, you can't partake in it if you're not from it. The problem is that there's a weird dichotomy of people coming and picking and choosing the parts that they want to share and sort of disregarding everything else. So, an easy example would be Day of the Dead. So is everyone familiar with Day of the Dead? It's they have the really cool, they've got the makeup, and there's a whole big celebration. And that's primarily a Mexican thing. There are some Latin countries that celebrate to a lesser extent, but it's primarily a Mexican thing. And it has to do with a celebration, a remembrance of deceased loved ones, right? And so, but you see how Mexicans get treated in the United States. There's someone campaigning to be president right now that feels completely comfortable saying that we should build a wall to keep Mexicans out. And then on the other hand, you have people who are like, oh, I just love sugar skull makeup. I love it's not even like the Day of the Dead. I'm going to do it anyway. It's so much fun. And that's what cultural appropriation is about. It's about picking one part of a culture that you want to be involved in, and then being okay with the rest of it getting shoved to the side, ignored, treated as lesser, because it's not as cutesy or fashionable or fun or whatever. And I think one of the biggest things that would help to kind of overcome the concept or the fact that cultural appropriation happens is to encourage the celebration of all parts of the culture, and to encourage representation of these cultures in media, in society, so that we see more of that, and not just this one little sliver, this one selection that's been sort of commercialized, for someone else's benefit, but all of it, and I think that would be fantastic to see more Mexican authors writing about, stuff with Day of the Dead, and to see more Chinese authors writing about, you know, their mythologies or their histories and stuff like that. And I feel like we're not going to see as much of that until people start encouraging that and pushing for that. Like, I think it's awesome that we're having this panel, but there are no writers here who are writing from their culture.
Right.
We're here to talk about, you know, how it is to write with other people's cultures, and it would be awesome to see, you know, a panel that's like, you know, a mixture of people, like, you know, people who've traveled and who've come across this thing that they thought was really interesting, and people who grew up with it, and who have always known that this is what the legends and the histories and the mythos were like. So, that's my spiel.
That's a fair spiel.
Onwards.
Yes. Well, and that's a very good point. I mean, to you know, from my perspective as a publisher, you know, when I get a story like from someone like Sunil or my friend Shweta Thakkar, writing about their culture, you know, and basing their fiction, that I'm very confident that they are probably getting most everything right. As another example, in this book alone, Gray Reinhardt, who is a guest here at the convention, has a story in here that is based in Inuit culture. He is most definitely not an Inuit.
However, he's lived and worked in the culture for a long period of time and can fluently and easily pronounce all those really long temperamental words.
Well, all the same, you know, I have to kind of make a call as a publisher, you know, when I'm reading the story, maybe 10 years ago, a publisher wouldn't have even given this a second thought. That has changed, and I'm glad it has changed. But, you know, when I was reading Gray's story, I had to think about, okay, you know, how much of this that he is telling me in the story does he actually know? You know, is there a lot of, you know, because something that you have to think about is, as a writer, as an artist, you know, as a writer, as an artist, is that especially in this day and age, you know, you are, even if you're just putting out what you think is the tiniest little zine or a photo stream of costumes or whatever it might be, you are playing to a global audience. You know, the people who might find something that you have done upsetting will see it. You have to assume they will see it. You can't just say, oh, if he fudged, it'll be okay. You really have to think about these things. Now, Gray's story, I think, is just absolutely terrific, and it was clear to me. It was clear to me that he wrote from a position of strength and knowledge, but. It can be daunting, and you know, it can be daunting to think about that if you do want to create art that, you know, is supposed to feign originating from a culture that you don't belong to. But on the other hand, on the other hand, it's if I